Those questions are fine, but we would ask that you wait to send us those questions until after you see that part of the workshop. We will go through your questions at the end of our presentation, which should last about 45 minutes.
The information obtained during this webcast is not, nor is intended to be legal advice. While this webcast contains general information, including legal guidelines for contractor license applications, it does not contain definitive statements of the law and may not reflect the most current legal developments in the construction industry. Such guidelines communicated or discussed during the webcast are for informational purposes only. If you have questions about the application of the law for specific situations, you should contact an attorney who is familiar with California construction law or review the latest edition of the CSLB publication, California Contractors License Law and Reference Book. You could download it for free on the CSLB website or purchase it directly from the publisher, LexisNexis. There are links for both at the bottom of the screen.
Here's a list of what we're going to cover today. We will take you through the process of applying for your California contractor's license. First, who needs a license? Why get a contractor's license? The minimum qualifications you need to get a license and what credits you might qualify for. The types of business entities. The different CSLB license classifications, including our new B2 residential remodeling classification. We will spend a lot of time giving you tips on how to help fill out your applications, including how to demonstrate your work experience to meet the minimum qualifications. Fingerprint requirements for a criminal background check. We will help you get ready for the exam or exams you'll need to pass in order to get your license. And finally, the other things you'll need to have in place before your license is issued, things like bond and insurance.
First, we'll look at who needs a license. Here in California, a state contractor's license is needed for all construction projects priced at $500 or more. That includes both labor and materials, no matter who purchases the materials. The law doesn't let you break down a project into $499 pieces. It's an entire project. Also, you can't charge an hourly rate to get around the $500 threshold. If the hourly cost times the number of hours for the job totals $500 or more, you need a contractor's license. So what is the definition of a contractor? The definition comes from the state's Business and Professions Code. In this case, it's section 7026.1. We've got a link to that code at the top of the page if you download the presentation. I'll read the entire code, but pay special attention to the part we underlined. A contractor is any person, consultant to an owner-builder, firm, association, organization, partnership, business trust, corporation, or company who or which undertakes, offers to undertake, purports to have the capacity to undertake, or submits a bid to construct any building or home improvement project or part thereof. In other words, you don't have to do the work to break the law. You must have a contractor's license just to advertise that you can do the construction work, or even to give a bid for a construction job if the bid totals $500 or more.
So you may be asking yourself, why should I get a license? Here are a few good reasons. First, you can take pride in being a licensed professional. It shows you've taken the steps to get licensed and you're serious about your career choice. It allows you to make valuable contributions to your local community. Unlicensed contractors must operate in the shadows and cannot help make their community a better place to live. Next, it allows you to get paid for the work you do. There is value to the work done by a licensed professional. Being licensed also gives you legal options if customers don't pay you. Unlicensed contractors do not have a legal right to take someone to court to get paid because the work required a license and they weren't licensed to do the work in the first place. Also, you would be able to use the mechanics lien laws. Next, you don't have to look over your shoulder with fear of getting caught. Contracting without a valid California license can lead to misdemeanor charges. Those caught face a first offense sentence of up to 6 months in jail and or a $5,000 fine and potential administrative fines anywhere between $200 and $15,000. Subsequent violations can result in increased criminal penalties and fines. In addition, you may face felony charges if you contract without a license where one is required in a state or federally declared disaster area, or if you try to pass yourself off as a licensed contractor by illegally using a license number. Remember, there are no educational requirements to get a license. Also, you don't have to go to a license preparation school to get your contractor's license.
So, what do you need to get your license? First, it's important to understand that CSLB does not license individuals. we license companies or businesses, also called entities. Many entities are one-person operations, but know that every entity, even a one-person operation, must have a qualifier. That's someone who has the minimum experience and is responsible for the operations of the company. Here's the short list of minimum qualifications you will need. You must be at least 18 years of age. You must have either a valid Social Security number or valid individual taxpayer identification number or ITIN. You can qualify the license in one of two ways. First, you can qualify the license by having at least 4 years experience within the last 10 years as a journey person, foreperson, supervising employee, or contractor in the trade being applied for. Or you can also get a qualifier for the license who has that required experience. We will spend time talking about how you can demonstrate your experience on your application later in this presentation.
It may be possible for you to substitute your education, technical training, and apprenticeship training for some of the required experience. We tend to get a lot of questions on this. First, CSLB cannot prejudge your experience. Due to the number of applications we receive and process every month, we don't have the staff time that would be needed to prejudge your experience. We can only review your documents after you apply for your license. Next, to get education credit, the coursework must be directly related to the work you will be doing as a contractor. Your education cannot be substituted for more than 3 years or 36 months of the required experience, meaning you will need at least 1 year of practical experience if you get the full 36 months of education credit. To apply for education credit, you must provide CSLB with written documentation. That means a copy of any apprenticeship completion certificates you earned, or get official technical school or college transcripts. Have your transcripts mailed to you. Do not open the envelope, leave it sealed, and include it with your CSLB applications packet. Note that high school courses will not earn you any credit towards your contractor's license.
If you are looking to get education credit to meet the 4 years or 48 months of experience, you need to get your transcripts first. This is the kind of credit you can expect to receive for your education. Note that for some areas, we are only giving you averages. You will see that your credit will be determined on a case-by-case basis. We're not going to be able to give you any more guidance than what you see on this slide. So our best advice is do not rely on the combination of your experience and education credits to barely hit the 4-year experience mark. There is always the real possibility you will not get as much education credit as you were hoping. Let's go through the chart from the most credit you can get to the least. The most education credit you can get is for a Bachelor's of Science degree in construction management. That degree will get you the full 36 months of credit. Next is a master's or bachelor degree in business or a law degree. Any one of those will get you 24 months of credit. An associate in science degree in construction management will get you 18 months credit. A bachelor's degree in some other major will get you an average of 18 months credit. An associate degree in a major besides construction management will get you an average of 6 months credit. Credit for individual college classes is given on a case-by-case basis, usually with a maximum of 6 months credit. Apprenticeship completion certificates will get you 24 to 36 months, depending on the classification of the program. For example, a sheet metal worker's apprenticeship gets you 24 months credit for the C20 HVAC and the C43 sheet metal classifications only. A lineman apprenticeship gets you 36 months in C7 low voltage and C10 electrical classifications only. If you have transcripts for other technical training you've taken, you might be able to get some minimal credit as well. Again, don't use your education credits to try and squeak by the 4-year or 48-month requirement.
If you've served in the military, some of that service might count as well. On the bottom of the page, you'll see a bonus link to our CSLB Military Application Assistance Program where you can learn more. The license qualifier also must pass 2 different exams, both taken on a computer at one of CSLB's authorized test centers. One exam is on California business law. The other is in the specific trade covered by the license. We also have limited specialty licenses, which we'll discuss later. Those licenses only require the qualifier to take the law and business exam. As mentioned, the qualifier is the one who must take and pass the required exams or qualify for a waiver. We're not going to spend a lot of time on a waiver, only to note that you might be able to request a waiver from taking one or both exams in very specific situations. We recommend that you look at the CSLB website for more information on those specific situations. We have included a bonus link at the bottom of the page. The qualifier must undergo a criminal background check. We will go more in depth on that in a few minutes. After the license is issued, the qualifier must be in a position to exercise direct supervision and control of the company's operations. They are also responsible for all workmanship issues. It's also important to note here that if you're trying to get a B General Building Contractor license and you hire subcontractors to work under you, you're responsible as the project's prime contractor for the work that they do.
The next thing you're going to need to determine before applying for your license is what type of entity your business will be. There are 4 types. First is a sole ownership, where the owner or responsible managing employee may serve as the license qualifier. Just about 2/3 of the contracting businesses in California are sole ownerships. Second, a corporation, where either of the current officers designated as the responsible managing officer or the responsible managing employee may serve as a qualifier. Just under 1/3 of our licensees are corporations. A distant third is a partnership, where either of the general partners or responsible managing employee may serve as a qualifier. That's 2% of our licensees. Finally, a limited liability company, or LLC, where a responsible managing member, responsible managing manager, responsible managing officer, or responsible managing employee may serve as a qualifier. About 1.5% of California construction companies are LLCs.
Now, let's talk about license classifications. A contractor's license can include multiple classifications, although you must select one when filling out your application. While there are more than 40 license classifications in California, they all fall under 3 distinct categories. There's a bonus link to our classifications list at the bottom of this screen. First is Class A, or General Engineering Contractors. These are contractors who deal with fixed works that require specialized engineering knowledge and skill. A contractors are the ones who build projects such as freeways, skyscrapers, and dams. Today, there are over 19,000 A contractors in the state. Next is Class B, or General Building Contractors. This is the largest class of contractors in California, with more than 133,000. B contractors have a principal business dealing with any structure built, being built, or to be built that requires as part of its construction at least 2 unrelated building trades or crafts. In other words, a B contractor shouldn't take a prime contract for any project involving trades other than framing or carpentry unless the prime contract requires at least 2 unrelated building trades other than framing or carpentry. There is no limitation on B contractors to stop them from taking on projects that only include framing or carpentry. The final class is C, or Specialty Contractors. These licenses are for construction work that requires special skill and whose principal contracting business involves the use of specialized building trades or crafts. Examples from this class include C10 Electrical Contractors, C20 HVAC Contractors, C27 Landscaping Contractors, C36 Plumbing Contractors, C39 Roofing Contractors, C46 Solar Contractors, and C53 Swimming Pool Contractors, just to name a few. There are also 30 limited specialty classes under the C61 classification. These include the C61 D34 prefabricated equipment class. More than 209,000 contractors hold a C license in California.
CSLB's newest licensing classification is called the B2 Residential Remodeling Classification. The B2 allows contractors who don't have structural framing experience to get a license with CSLB. Here's what interested applicants need to know. B2 license holders must engage in 3 or more trades or crafts on a residential project. B2 licensees also are limited to working on existing residential wood frame structures. There are some things B2 license holders cannot do. They cannot make structural alterations to load-bearing partitions and walls. They cannot install or extend electrical or plumbing systems. They can make modifications to existing systems, for example, install recessed lighting or alter plumbing for 2 shower heads. B2 licensees also cannot install or replace an HVAC system. Like all other CSLB licensees, B2 applicants' licensees must comply with CSLB experience, examination, license bond, and workers' compensation insurance requirements. If you have more questions about the B2 license, email the classifications deputy at classifications@cslb.ca.gov.
When you're ready to apply for a license, here are the 2 forms you will need. On the left is the license application. On the right is the certification of work experience. You can get these forms on the CSLB website. There's a bonus link on the left side of the page, so be sure to download this presentation. We will give you a closer look at the different sections of these forms a little later.
Okay, now let's break down the steps of the application process. First, identify who will be the qualifier for your license. That person will be responsible for exercising direct supervision and control of the company. If you're using an RME or responsible managing employee as your qualifier, determine if they can qualify for an exam waiver. Be aware of companies you pay to connect you with a licensed qualifier. In some cases, these qualifiers cannot exercise the direct supervision needed, or they aren't willing, or don't understand their role as a qualifier. Next, make sure you complete the correct application. There are two options. 1, application for original contractor license. 2, application for original contractor license examination waiver 7065. We have a link to the forms and applications webpage at the bottom of this page.
The next step is to determine your company name. See the application instructions for examples. Some things to keep in mind. Your name cannot be misleading or imply that you qualify for a license classification other than what you're getting. For example, if you're going to apply for a C36 plumbing license, you cannot have a company of John Smith Plumbing Construction, Heating and Drywall. Corporate and LLC names must match exactly the name registered with the California Secretary of State's office. You can also use what is called a DBA, which stands for Doing Business As. The main things to remember here is the DBA name cannot be misleading, and you must use that name in all advertising and on all your contracts. Next, you'll want to get together certifications to support your work experience. You should do this even if you apply for an exam waiver. Feel free to use multiple pages if necessary. Next, be sure to note if you're a military veteran. Some of your military service may be used to meet your 4 years of experience qualifications. Also, your application may be expedited and receive a possible 50% reduction in your initial licensing fee through our Military Application Assistance Program. There's a bonus link at the bottom of the screen for more information on that program. To participate, you must have not been dishonorably discharged. Be sure to include a copy of your latest DD-214 long form paperwork showing your discharge status with your application. The next couple of items are basic but important. Proofread your application for any missing information. Make sure you have provided an answer to all necessary fields. Second, don't forget to sign and date the application. Finally, determine if you need special accommodations to take your exams. If so, complete a request form and submit it with your application. We'll talk about the use of translators a little later.
Next, let's take a closer look at our fingerprint requirements, which are used for a criminal background check. This is a list of those who must submit a full set of fingerprints to CSLB, depending on the type of business entity. All applicants, each corporate officer, each member and manager, each partner, each owner, the responsible managing employee, all home improvement salespersons. If you are in California, you must submit fingerprints electronically with what's called live scan. You can get an updated list of live scan locations in California, broken down by county, on the Attorney General's website. We have a link here, or you can simply go to the Attorney General's website and search for live scan. You will also see we have a bonus link at the bottom of the screen to the fingerprint information page on our CSLB website. If you are out of state, it's a longer process to get us your fingerprints. That's because you must submit hard copies of them the old-fashioned way. Those take anywhere between 3 and 6 months for the FBI and Department of Justice to process. So you might want to consider traveling to California to get your electronic live scan done here.
So what happens if you have any criminal convictions? CSLB may deny your license for the following reasons. First, if your conviction is substantially related to the duties, functions, and qualifications of a contractor. Also, if your conviction involves fraud or a violent crime. There are other factors CSLB also considers, which are the nature and severity of the crimes, the amount of time that has passed since a conviction, and any evidence of rehabilitation that you submit to CSLB. CSLB evaluates felony criminal convictions which occurred within 7 years of the application date. For misdemeanor criminal convictions, we would look back for 3 years of the application date. That's unless the convictions are for a violent felony, certain sexual crimes, or financial crimes related to construction. CSLB denies only 1% of the total applications we get based on criminal convictions. You'll also note the bonus link to our fingerprint information page.
Okay, along with the education credits we talked about earlier, this next section is probably the most important of the entire workshop and the part of the application that causes the most questions for applicants. It is how you demonstrate your work experience on your application. Remember, the license qualifier needs 4 years or 48 months of experience within the past 10 years in the classification for which you're applying. The experience must be no less than a journeyman level or as a foreman, supervising employee, contractor, or owner builder. A journeyman is defined as an experienced worker who is fully qualified, as opposed to a trainee who can perform the trade without supervision or one who's completed an apprenticeship program.
There's a limited amount of space on the application to show your certified work experience, so feel free to use additional pages if needed and simply attach them at the end of the work experience form. Use as many certifications of work experience forms as you need to prove the required 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. Use a different form for each certifier. Be as accurate as possible. Make sure the person certifying your work describes the actual work you performed and the dates in which you performed them. We will now share some examples of both good and unacceptable descriptions to demonstrate your work experience. Do not copy and paste this information directly into your application. These are just examples.
At the top of this chart is the classification and type of experience you're trying to demonstrate. This first example is journey person experience. The overall theme we'll keep repeating is the more specific the description, the better. Note, the work experience form should be completed by your certifier, someone who has knowledge and has observed your work experience for the classification you're applying for. That person does not have to be a licensed contractor. Our first example is for the Class B general building contractor. The best type of description your certifier would use for a journey person experience is to be specific. Journey person experience must include hands-on work like this. Bob performed rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior, exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. An unacceptable description would be something generic like residential general building trades.
For 4-person experience, the description must include some hands-on work and/or supervisory work. Here's an example of the best type of description. Bob oversaw other staff at job site performing rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior, exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, an unacceptable description would be something generic like residential general building trades.
For supervising employee experience, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at a supervisor level. An example is, as a construction lead on multiple projects, Bob supervised rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes.
For out-of-state contractor experience, the description must include examples of work done that were out-of-state, military, on federal lands, or work for a government entity. Applicants can qualify as a journey person, 4-person, or supervising employee. A tip: be specific about your duties and employment circumstances.
Our next example is for the C27 landscaping contractor. The best type of description your certifier would use would be Jane performed landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable explanation would be gardening, yard maintenance, planting.
For a C27 landscaping 4-person, the description should indicate overseeing other staff performing the trades. And for the C27 supervising employee, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level for the trades on a project.
Finally, for our out-of-state contractors, the same guidance that we showed you for general building contractors is required. Be sure to include examples of your out-of-state work as well as work for the military, on federal lands, or for a government entity. Be sure to be specific when you describe your duties and employment circumstances.
By law, CSLB must randomly review and verify all information provided on at least 3% of our applications. Our next 3 slides run down the acceptable documentation you can use to support your work experience in the event that your application was selected and you were asked to provide additional documentation. The supporting documentation should not be mailed in with your application. You will only need to provide this information if requested by CSLB staff. On the lower right of the screen, you'll see a link to this publication on our website along with additional information on experience documentation. If you look at the chart, You can see the first column is for documents you can use if you were employed by a licensed contractor. The second column is for documenting your experience if you've been self-employed. The third column is for documentation you will need if you're applying for a Class B general building contractor license and need to use the owner-builder experience to meet the experience requirements. Here's the next page of acceptable documentation. Again, you can click on the link to view and print this publication. If you don't have this information readily available, you may want to begin to gather it now, just in case you're asked to provide it in the future. Remember, you are trying to demonstrate 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. CSLB may contact the certifier of experience or other parties to verify experience.
One other note, CSLB gets more than 1,000 applications each month, so our application processing staff has seen it all. They've got 2 pieces of advice. First, don't cut and paste from this presentation. Also, don't try to get around having to take a trade test by applying for multiple subcategories under the C61 Limited Specialty Classification. Okay, that is the content you'll need to fill out your application. Before getting it to CSLB, double check it to make sure you didn't miss anything. Be sure to sign and date it as well.
Parts of the application, Section 1, Business Name and Address. Now that we've gone through the information you'll need to include, here's a closer look at the application so you can see where the information goes. Section 1 is where you list your business name. Remember, when selecting a business name, make sure the name you selected is compatible with the classification and entity that you're applying for and is not misleading. If your business is a corporation or LLC, you will need to make sure that the name you provide in this section matches exactly the business name registered with the Secretary of State. In line 2, you will indicate what classification you're applying for. The mailing address and phone number that you list on line 3A and 3C will be made public on CSLB's website once you are licensed. In Section 2, you will select your business entity. If you're applying as a corporation or LLC, you will need to provide your registration number provided to you by the Secretary of State. Make sure to pay extra attention to the instructions in this section pertaining to the entity for which you're applying.
Section 3, Qualifying Individual Full Legal Name and Address. In Section 3, you will list the qualifier's information. Remember, the qualifier is the person that meets the experience requirements and will be responsible for the direct supervision and control of construction operations. The qualifier will be the person taking the exams. On line 6, you will list any previous or current license numbers you've held. You will also need to list the percentage of the new business owned by the qualifier. On line 7, you will need to indicate what position will be held by the qualifier. Each entity has different personnel requirements. You will need to make sure that you've listed all positions depending on the entity you have selected. You can find more information on this on pages 2 through 4 of the application instructions. Line 8 is where you will sign and date your application.
Section 4, Personnel, Full Legal Names and Addresses. Section 4 is where you'll list the personnel information for all remaining personnel that will be listed on the license. For example, if you're applying for a corporation, you'll need to indicate who will be the responsible managing officer or employee, president, secretary, and treasurer. Again, more information can be found on page 6 of the application instructions. If you'll have more than 4 people on your license, you can make additional copies of this page and include it with your application. For corporations and LLCs, every person who is an officer, responsible manager, or member, or director of a corporation or limited liability company shall be listed on the application as a member of the personnel of record for the license. All personnel that will be listed on the license must sign the application in Section 4.
Section 5 is a series of yes and no questions, so we're not going to cover those here. Section 6. Qualifier education, apprenticeship, licensure, and military. You may be granted credit towards the 4-year experience requirement based on your education. Question 17 asks if you have completed an educational or apprenticeship program. You will need to submit official sealed transcripts if you would like to be considered for educational credit. If you attended formal training or an apprenticeship program, you will need to provide a certificate of completion. Get those sealed transcripts mailed to you, then include the sealed transcripts with your application packet. Do not have the program send transcripts directly to CSLB. You don't want to take a chance that we're not able to match them up with your application. CSLB may grant you up to 3 years of credit based on your education. This credit is not on a year-to-year basis, meaning if you have a 2-year college degree, you won't necessarily be granted 2 years of credit towards the experience requirement. You may qualify for this credit regardless of when you completed your education. The 10-year time frame does not apply to education. You may also apply for this credit even if your education was received out of the country. If your degree is in any other language other than English, it must be translated and evaluated by an accredited evaluation service that does business with the United States.
Parts of the application, Certification of Work Experience, Part 1. Now we'll discuss the Certification of Work Experience. Part 1 will be filled out by you, the applicant. Here you will list the information about your employer where you gained your experience. If you were self-employed when you gained the experience, please make sure to check the box in line 2. If you're applying for a B General Construction License and will be using experience obtained while working on your own property, make sure to mark the box in line 4 and complete an Owner-Builder Construction Project Experience form that we'll discuss later.
Certification of Work Experience, Part 2. Part 2 will be filled out by the certifier. In this section, the certifier must include the dates in which you obtained the experience. They must also select if you were working on a part-time or full-time basis. Keep in mind, if you were working part-time, you will receive 50% credit for that time, which means you will need to provide 8 years of experience within the last 10 years to meet the 4-year requirement. On line 6, your certifier will need to list the duties that you performed or supervised that are considered relatable for the classification that you are applying for. You can read a description of trade duties in CSLB's Description of Classifications booklet available on our website. Do not copy and paste the description from the booklet. This is only to give you an idea of what CSLB considers related trade duties for each classification. Your certifier should complete this section in their own words and be as complete and accurate as possible.
Certification of Work Experience, final part. The final part of the Work Experience Certificate is also to be completed by your certifier. They need to list their relationship to you and provide their contact information. Lastly, they will need to sign and date the certification.
Parts of the application, Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience, Part 1 of 3. The next form we will discuss is the Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience form. This form only needs to be completed if you're applying for a B General Construction license and you want to receive experience credit for working on projects on your own property. A separate form is required for each project. The experience must be verifiable through building permits, final inspections, and other documentation. You will need to list the building permit number on line 6. On line 7, you will need to provide the scope of the project. Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience 2 of 3. In boxes 8 through 10, you'll need to provide more detailed information about the project. Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience 3 of 3. Question 11 asks if other general construction contractors worked on the project and what trades they performed. Remember, this information should be as complete and accurate as possible.
With all the information we just covered, this is a good time to remind you that we're recording this workshop. We'll post the video on our YouTube channel so you can go back and rewatch it in case there's anything you missed. Okay, so you've got your application submitted. How do you check the status of that application? Here are 2 resources. First is the secured check. You'll need your application fee number and contractor PIN number to get an update. We'll send you that information after we receive, cashier, and key into the system your completed application. The second way to check is to look online at our processing times. Each week, we update our website with the date we receive the paperwork for a specific process. So look for the date being worked on, and know that if the date shown is after the date we likely received your paperwork, it's likely we're busy working on your application. As you can imagine, CSLB receives hundreds, if not thousands of documents every day, and we process them in the order they're received. So be sure to take extra time getting the application right so we don't have to send it back to you to correct and then start processing your application again.
When your application has been posted, CSLB will send you a notice to schedule for examination and a study guide. You may then schedule your exams through the online scheduling process. CSLB has many authorized test centers throughout California and encourages candidates to take their exams at their nearest test center.
If you're an applicant whose first language isn't English and you don't feel confident taking your exams in English, we do allow you to use a translator. The translator, who you provide, simply reads you the exam questions. The CSLB Law and Business exam is now available in Spanish. There's a link at the bottom of the page to read more about this new option. Question 16 on the application asks if you need to use a translator to complete the examination and the language the exam will be translated into. The translator must be approved by CSLB in advance. You cannot just show up on the day of your examination to the test center with someone to translate the exam for you. When you have an exam date, make sure you don't miss it. If you fail to appear for your exam, you'll have to pay a non-refundable $100 fee to reschedule. That fee may be waived once with documented evidence of a medical emergency or circumstance beyond your control. Also, we have study guides available for each of our exams. Included in each study guide, you'll find a list of sections and topics covered by the exam. They also include sample questions, how each section of the exam is weighted, and recommended resources that you can use to prepare for the examination. These study guides are available online on our website. There's a bonus link to them on the bottom of the screen. These study guides are also available in Spanish.
Here's a quick look at 2 of those study guides. The first is the Law and Business exam, which all qualifiers must take, no matter which license classification, including the D Series limited classes. You can see the guide contains a breakdown of examination topics, some test strategies, sample questions, and resources that were used to help create that exam. You will see the same format on the B General Building Study Guide. We would recommend that you really pay attention to the exam content here, especially how we have broken down what percentage of questions there will be on each of the 5 topics on the exam. On the lower right of both of these 2 slides, you'll see bonus links to the actual study guide, as well as a link to the complete list of study guides.
On your testing day, plan to arrive at least 15 minutes early for your exam. Give yourself extra time to get checked in. Follow the instructions provided online when scheduling your exam date. We've also produced a short What to Expect on Test Day video that you can watch on our YouTube channel. The link is at the bottom of your screen.
You'll take your exam on a computer using a keyboard and mouse. Before starting, you'll see an on-screen tutorial that'll take you through the process. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. You'll also see a space on each question where you can, if you want, submit a comment about that question. You'll get 3.5 hours to complete each exam. Don't arrive late, or that may reduce the amount of time you get to complete your exam, or you may not be admitted to the exam and will have to reschedule. You will get your results at the end of the exam. If you don't pass the exam, you will not be allowed to review the questions you missed, but you will get a statement showing how you did on each section of the exam. You can reschedule the exam as many times as you need within the 18-month period, as long as you pay the non-refundable $100 rescheduling fee each time. Each rescheduled test must be at least 3 weeks following the previous test per rescheduling guidelines.
After you pass your exams, what happens next? First, you'll need to pay your initial license fee, $200 for a sole owner license and $350 for a non-sole owner license. That will be good for 2 years. You'll also need to complete an online asbestos open book exam. Plus, you'll need to file your required $25,000 contractor surety bond and possibly other bonds depending on what type of business entity you'll have. If you've got employees, you'll need to get workers' compensation insurance. If you don't have employees, you must file a workers' compensation exemption with CSLB. You can also submit this online. If you're going to be an LLC, you'll also need liability insurance. See our website for more information. Your insurance company or broker can submit your insurance information to CSLB directly on our website. Please note that workers' compensation insurance is also required for all contractors applying for the C8 concrete, C20 warm air heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, C22 asbestos abatement, C39 roofing, and C61 D49 tree service classifications, regardless of whether they have any employees. Effective January 1st, 2026, all licensees will be required to carry workers' compensation insurance regardless of the classification or whether they have any employees.
In about 5 to 10 business days after your license has been issued, CSLB will send you a wall certificate and plastic pocket license card. Display the wall certificate in your main office or chief place of business. Carry your pocket card with you, especially in situations where you're going to solicit business, talk to potential customers, or sign contracts. We encourage consumers to ask to see your pocket license. If you're going to have salespeople working for you, be sure to get them registered as a home improvement salesperson with CSLB. Check our website for more information on how to do that. Your license will be good for 2 years. It'll expire on the last day of the month when it was issued. Be sure to put that expiration date in your calendar, in your phone, anywhere you need so you won't forget it. CSLB will send you a renewal notice in the mail approximately 60 days before it expires, but ultimately it is your responsibility to renew your license on time.
Here are a couple of other important deadlines to keep in mind. First, notify CSLB within 90 days if you move or change your business address. Your renewal notice will be sent to the address of record that we have on file. If you're not at that address anymore, you're probably not going to get it. Plus, the Postal Service will not forward state government mail. Finally, notify CSLB within 90 days of all changes to personnel on your license, especially when it involves the qualifier of the license.
Once you get your license and get to work, you might want to hire someone as a salesperson to solicit, sell, and negotiate home improvement contracts on your behalf outside of your place of business. These people are called home improvement salespersons, or HIS. Without an HIS, the official personnel of record on a license are the only ones who can solicit, sell, negotiate, or execute a contract. That includes individual contractors, license qualifiers, partners, corporation officers, and LLC responsible managing officers, members, managers, or employees. A HIS can work for more than one contractor. The licensee must notify CSLB when they either associate or disassociate an HIS with their license. This process can now be completed online as well.
There are a couple exceptions to note. First are those who only schedule appointments for the contractor or registered HIS, and bona fide service and repair people. These are the folks you call out for repairs, including things like air conditioning, heating, and plumbing. But those services and repair people are limited to the work that was initially requested by the buyer or homeowner. For example, if your AC goes out and you call an HVAC company to come out, the service person does not have to be a registered salesperson. But if they go beyond the repair itself and sell you a new HVAC system, they will have to be a registered HIS. Also, don't employ an unregistered salesperson. That subjects you to administrative discipline, and the salesperson might get a citation or possibly even a criminal misdemeanor. We've got bonus links at the bottom of this page if you want to look at the actual code sections of law.
Good morning. Just a reminder on your questions and our answers, if you could please type in your questions to all panelists at the bottom, therefore all of us can see them so that we can get you an answer. So question number 1, can I qualify for a B2 as a homeowner who has done my own remodeling work? So as a B2, it is a possibility. You have to have 3 unrelated trades. Again, no framing, no new installation of HVAC, plumbing, or electrical. I believe you can do minor repairs on the existing what's already there. So yeah, you just have to have 3 unrelated trades listed in your work experience. Somebody does have to be your certifier, as always. And there are quite a few different options you can use as your certifiers when you have that filled out by them. Next question. I have a question on qualifications. I have a master's in construction management. Can my education help with experience? And if so, how many years can I cover and how can I show proof? So as per the slideshow, the workshop that you just watched or you listened to, we cannot pre-qualify you with your degree. However, we give you a guideline of what could possibly be your educational credit. So I cannot answer that. Unfortunately, I cannot pre-qualify you. When you submit your completed application, you will submit your official transcripts unopened from your university, and your processing technician will review all the information together and make that determination. It also does depend upon the classification that you're applying for and what your degree is, if they're associated or not. I'm interested in applying for a C7 contractor license to launch a business specializing in Ethernet cable installations for small business IT LAN networks. However, despite having accumulated 6 years of experience performing tasks like cutting, terminating, and connecting Ethernet cables between the servers and workstations, as well as managing various aspects of company IT infrastructure, I'm encountering the challenge of not meeting the CSLB's requirement of 4 years of low voltage work experience. So a lot of what you just stated, and this is for Bo, sounds a lot like C7, or what could possibly be C7 low voltage experience. So I'm uncertain if you have already submitted an application and you've received a return for correction letter stating they need more information. So I'm unclear if you've already applied and you've received something like that, or if you've just inquired and somebody has said something to you. If you could send us an email at licensing, which is LICENSING at cslb.ca.gov. If you have an application fee number, please include that with your within your email. Again, with, let's say, what you've written here, so that it can refresh my memory when I do receive that email, so that I can look into your application, see what was said, what was done, and if what's additionally needed. So Bo, if you would please send that email with your information, that would be great. Again, Bo, the CSLB doesn't categorize IT professionals as part of the low voltage field. What potential options exist for me, and is there a feasible path forward in my current situation? Again, if you could please send me your application fee number at the licensing email, which is licensing at cslb.ca.gov. Like I said, if you have an application, I can look further into it, see what's being said, what was actually written on the certificate of work experience, and just give it a quick review to see if there's anything that I can help with. I just need a little bit more information on that. So Clayton, before I get my contractor's license, can I build and be general on my own project? So you can be an owner builder. Obviously, you're not a contractor, but you would be an owner builder where you would pull your own permits, and owner builder does their own work on their own property. So you could possibly do that. Again, pulling your permits, getting final inspections and whatnot. If you're trying to ask if you can come back with that experience later on to apply for a contractor's license, you could. Again, completed application with the experience, and it would be reviewed, and then we could determine, the amount of work experience that you could get for those projects. It would be dependent when you do apply on what is listed and what you did, because owner builder is you. That's not supervising subcontractors that you've hired. That's not utilizing workers and supervising them either. You actually have to be the person who performed the trades that we're looking for the classification that you're applying for. Corey, how do I acquire a study guide for the law portion of the C-class license? So there's only one law exam. It's for all classifications. Your best resource is the 2023 Law and Reference Book, which is located on our website. It has a free download. It's quite several thousand pages. However, it is your most informative information that you're going to get as far as the law goes. In the front of the download or the book, if you had a physical copy, there's questions like most answered questions with some answers. a whole bunch of different little scenarios. And then you go into the business and profession codes, which are the laws for all contractors licensed in the state of California. So that would be your best bet. Obviously, we don't expect someone to read it cover to cover, front to back. However, that's your best resource. And going forward as a licensee, it would behoove you to know what's within those pages and what's within what you're allowed to perform and not allowed to perform, how to write your contracts, how to, what's the limitations of the law for the contractors. Karen, as a property manager for 12 years with multiple remodels and trade, can that be used as experience? So as a property manager, is that for like apartment buildings? Is that like for like a landlord of a home? You said multiple remodels and trade. I'm not quite sure what that means. And were you performing those actual remodels, and what were you performing in those remodels? So Karen, if you want to shoot us an email over at licensing@cslb.ca.gov with a little bit more clarity on what was performed, who performed it, and what classification maybe that you're looking towards, that would be great. And we can try to give you a little bit more information to answer your question for that. Matthew, can a landscape designer become a C27 landscape contractor if they've been working under a C27 contractor? So if you've been performing C27 trades under your employer who is a C27 contractor, it is feasible that you could apply for the classification. Of course, you would have had to have performed the trades of a C27. Being just a landscape designer doesn't fit the bill. Again, you would have to have performed the duties of a contractor in that trade. So designing it is not, and I'm not trying to downplay it, but just being a designer of the landscape in somebody's backyard, is not a C27 contractor. So, installing the sprinklers, and installing sod, planting trees, planting plants, flowers, the scheme of it, beautifying the backyard, the whole project. Those are some of the things that you would have to have performed rather than just being a designer. So yeah, it is a possibility. However, you would have had to have performed those trades under your employer. Matthew, what if? Well, I don't know. Hopefully you have something a little further down. Sean, I'm interested in getting my C7 license, but my work experience is through a job platform that hires per job work. I have over 7 years experience in the field. How do I use that as a qualifier? So Sean, did you, I'm not sure about job platform that hires per job work. So were you actually working for other licensees in the same trade? You said you have over 7 years experience in the field. How do I use that as a qualifier? Well, all applicants, again, have to have a certifier. And the certifier is someone who has firsthand knowledge of your experience in the trades that are being performed. When they complete part 2 of the certification of work experience, they are saying in their own words that they have seen you perform whatever you've performed. So, dependent upon the trades that they state to us on part 2 of the certification of work experience, what we see and how long it's been, if it qualifies for the trade that you're applying for. Again, I'm not quite sure about the job platform that hires per job work. You could also send us an email at licensing@cslb .ca.gov, just to give us a little bit more clarification on, who you're going out to work for, who's hiring you, are they licensees and whatnot. Clayton, I'm a general in Utah, a GC. Karen, for clarification, I was not me doing the work, rather project management, safety, and time management for final product and delivery. So unfortunately, Karen, that would not qualify you for a contractor's license unless you were working specifically for a contractor as a supervisor over the trades that contractor holds. We do see this a lot. Project management does not necessarily, again, qualify you to apply for a contractor's license in any trade, because again, we need to know firsthand that you were out there doing the work in the classification that you're applying for. You could always go the route that somebody else is your qualifier and you're maybe the sole owner, or you could be a corporate officer. But just reading what you've put on here for clarification, I do not believe that you would qualify for a classification since you did not actually perform any trades. Matthew, will a degree in landscape architecture help with the license? It very well could, but again, we cannot pre-qualify you for that. As per the slideshow in the workshop, you can see the possibilities of what could be granted with education credit. However, completed application with your sealed transcripts, unopened from your college or university with your application, which is also dependent upon the classification that you're applying for, will not be reviewed until that information is submitted and application is paid for. Daniel, I'm interested in getting my license B. I have 11 years of experience in remodeling commercial and residential. Okay, so for the B classification, you do have to have a framing aspect with 2 unrelated trades within your experience. So if you believe that you have 11 years of experience remodeling commercial and residential, I don't know if you worked for a licensee or not. It's a possibility if you have those trades that you could apply for the B and be granted to go to testing with the B. However, I'll need a little bit more information than what was put on here. What kind of experience? What did you work on? And did it include a structuring component with 2 unrelated trades? Sean, the job platform is called Field Nation. You get hired for jobs based on the work they post to complete jobs in the IT field. Okay, but are they licensees? Or are they just like a mom and pop business needing someone to come in and connect their Ethernet cables or, put up their Ring cameras? Still need a little bit more information on that so that we can kind of make a determination for you. So, I'm assuming kind of like a temp agency, maybe Field Nation is. I'm just not certain. And again, who are you going to do the work for? Are they licensees? Daniel, do I need to get private classes before taking the exam? I would tell you absolutely not. There are schools out there that are not affiliated in any aspect with the state of California, with CSLB. And they do charge money for classes or helping you fill out your application. I would strongly recommend that if you know your trade, to not go to something like that. Again, they are not affiliated with CSLB or the state of California at all. And it's kind of at your own risk if you do utilize something outside of the state. The application is pretty easy to complete, as you saw in, again, the workshop slideshow. It's pretty self-explanatory. When you get down to the work experience portion, you have to have a certifier. But again, if you know your trade, obviously there's things that you could brush up on, as far as maybe there's slang words out there when you're out on the job, but there's actual wording that's used in the field, with calculations that you might need. You might want to brush up on some of that stuff. And we do have sample study guides and sample tests, I believe, that are on our website that you can go into the search bar and look for. But yeah, I wouldn't say take any private classes. I mean, if that's what you want to do, but again, they are going to charge you for that, and they're not affiliated with us, so I would not recommend it. CW for an owner builder performing framing, insulation, cabinetry, flooring, roofing, and plumbing. Top out quality for appropriate experience. To apply for a B. Class B. So you do have your framing there, and you have 2 unrelated trades within the other trades that you did list there. Owner builder, though, it's a little different. Owner builder won't necessarily be the whole time that you worked on your own home or your own property. It would have a different calculation that we would base this on. Because people can take years to build their house. They're not necessarily doing it full time, 24/7. So they're not going to get, if you did 7 years, you're not going to most definitely not get 7 years experience. So it is based on a couple different things that we internally calculate. And for owner builder, you would be required, as well as a certification of work experience form, to submit the owner builder project list also with finalized permits and finalized inspection reports, so we know what was actually performed, who pulled the permit. You as the owner builder should be pulling it, doing the work. No licensees on the job. For anything that you're claiming that you did on that job. But looking at the trades listed, it could possibly be appropriate experience for you to apply for the Class B. Daniel, my experience on remodeling, framing, finished carpentry, roofing, electrical, painting, drywall, concrete, forms, plumbing. That's my experience on work. Don't recall what your question was without going back up. But if you're applying for the B, it's a possibility that could be, again, be experienced towards that. Again, if you work for a licensee and they could be your certifier, it's a possibility that could be acceptable. If it was owner builder, like the last question from a participant, you would have to, again, still have your certification of work experience completed with a certifier, and you would have to submit owner builder project list, and again, permits with finalized inspection reports. Jose, how strict is the criminal background check for felons? I am a felon with a violent crime that happened in 2012. Will this disqualify me? Not necessarily, but the information that I can give you is the exact information that was listed in the workshop in the slideshows. I know they do look for how long it's been since it happened. I believe they base that on your probation also after the fact, and that there is a time limit. But again, that information is not known by all of us who work at CSLB. It is by the criminal background unit. But the information that is put out in the slideshow is pretty relevant to what you're asking. So I would ask that you maybe go back and review that to see how that might affect you in the process. I know we do not, CSLB as a whole does not deny a lot. However, it is going to be based upon, again, when it happened, when the probation ended, and how long it's been. So please go back, Jose, and look at the slides that do talk about the fingerprint aspect and what could be acceptable and what is not acceptable. Daniel B. So yes, as I've already explained, if you did it under a licensee, they would be your certifier, or they could be your certifier. If it's owner builder, again, you would have to have the project list and the of under owner builder, and you would be subject to submitting your permits and your finalized inspection reports. Clayton, I'm a little confused. So can a homeowner builder hire a subcontractor for his own home? You can, but you don't get credit for the work that they did. So if they come in and do your electricity, you hire them for that, you can't claim that work because you did not perform it. You can definitely hire subcontractors to come in and do some of your work, but again, you will not receive credit for something that somebody else did on your own home. That would not be part of your owner builder. You cannot supervise other subcontractors. They are already licensed and have already gone to the vigorous testing and application process. So yeah, owner builder is you doing the work on your own home. Again, you can hire whoever you want to hire. You just won't receive credit for what they do on your home. Jonathan, I have been doing lots of handyman work around my neighborhood as well as for a restoration company. How do I go about asking for them to help me? Help you as in how? To certify you for you to go ahead and apply for a contractor's license? Okay, so yes. Well, if you're on good terms with them, I would just say that you go ask them, look, I'm trying to start my own business. I'm trying to apply for a contractor's license. Would you be willing to certify me in the experience that I have when I have worked for you? That's completely on you. It doesn't always have to be the employer who is your certifier. There are a handful of individuals who can be your certifier. Do I ask the owner or the manager? It doesn't matter. Whomever has firsthand knowledge of your experience. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be the contractor themselves. It could be a fellow employee, who works side by side with you. It could be the contractor. It could be a business associate, a union representative. It could be the employer. I mean, it is based upon what you feel comfortable with and if they're willing to do it. So, yeah, unfortunately, that's the part that I can give you information or advice on it, but we can't make them certify you. So I don't see any more questions. Does anybody else have a question they'd like to submit to all panelists? Okay, Steph, going for B General and Qualifier. Going for General B and Qualifier passed away this year. How can I get that time? Steph, do me a favor. If you could please send an email to licensing@cslb.ca.gov. If you can give me the license number and a little bit more information, I can review that and let you know if there's a possibility that you can qualify for that position. or maybe you might have a different avenue that you can take. But we do need a little bit more information on that. So please send an email. Daniel, where can I take the test? So again, as seen in the workshop slideshows, we have partnered with PSI so that there is a plethora of locations throughout California that applicants, once they're to the testing phase of the application, can go and take their exams. Now, once your application has been accepted, what we do is we refer you to exams, and you will receive, I believe, a letter, maybe an email with the information of how you register with PSI, and then you get to choose your location and your dates. So that information will be sent to you once your application has been accepted through CSLB and you're ready to take the exams. But there are a ton of locations throughout California. Daniel, is everything online or can I take it in person? So you do go to a location, again, within California. You'll choose your location based on where you live or where you're located. But again, after your application has been approved and sent to testing, you'll receive that information and then you can go forward from there. Jonathan, what if I was getting paid cash? What will be needed on my end? I will need to show pay stubs. When you say cash, are we talking under the table? Or are we talking instead of a check they gave you cash, but you still received a pay stub, which it kind of sounds like? We do not ask for pay stubs. That is something that in the event we're unable to verify your work experience, then it's a possibility that we could ask for additional information like pay stubs or W-2s. But starting out with your application, we just want to see the basics. The certification of work experience, part 2 completed by your certifier with the trades that they witnessed firsthand and signed by them. Again, it'd have to be reviewed and based on the classification, what was there, who you worked for, who you didn't work for. We would make a determination from there. So do not send any additional information with your application besides the completed application unless asked to. Although it's a possibility, extra information might be needed. I would just advise to just send in your application and let it be reviewed to go forward. Matthew, if my employer has a C27 and decides to retire, can the license still stand with the company or someone else take over the company? Well, Matthew, it depends. So if it's a sole ownership, the licensee could have a family member take it over, but that would pretty much be the only option for a sole ownership. If it's a corporation, LLC, then there is a possibility somebody else maybe purchasing it from him or her, and going through the motions to be the new qualifier on the license. However, it is a little bit of a loaded question. So if you want some more information, I would advise if you could send an email to licensing@cslb.ca.gov, and I can maybe give you a little bit more information. Give me a license number, the entity of the license and whatnot. How long is the Class B exam? I believe they're about 3, maybe 2, let's say 2 to 4 hours. I know they're all online, and I believe they're multiple choice. I don't believe that you can take, but I could be wrong. I don't believe you can take rests or breaks in between. But I do believe it's anywhere from 2 to 4 hours per exam, whether it be your trade exam, A, B, or any of the C class, specialty classifications, or the law exam. I do believe that all the exams are around the same amount of time. And Daniel says, thank you very much. To anybody, though, if you have any information that wasn't clarified to you in our questions and answer portion, you can always reach out again to the licensing email at licensing@cslb.ca.gov. Try to be as in-depth as you possibly can in your questions, so that we can try to get you the most appropriate answer. So we don't have to go back and forth also with the email. But definitely send an email if you have any questions. So I don't see any more questions. Does anybody else have anything else that they would like to ask? I should say also that these are put on our YouTube channel, and other questions and answers, I believe, are also at the end of each of the YouTube production that has been recorded in the past. You know, it might behoove you to go back and maybe listen to the other answers and, questions and answers to see if there's something that maybe it wasn't asked here, or maybe it was asked in a different way. But definitely, go back and review the other ones. This is a very informational workshop, and we do it in Spanish. I believe in 2 weeks we're going to do Spanish, whereas we do the English at the first Friday of the month. And then I believe 2 weeks in is the Spanish version, so that if Spanish or English isn't your first language, you do have the option to do the Spanish workshop also. Jonathan, did we get this PowerPoint? It will be on our YouTube channel. Again, our public affairs people will put that out there, so that everybody does have access to that, so that you can go back and look at it and whatnot. Okay, do we have any more questions? Okay, so that's all the time we have today for our workshop. Thank you for all of your questions. If you have any other questions about your application, we do encourage you to drop an email to our licensing division. Here is the email address. It's licensing@cslb.ca.gov. Again, that's licensing, LICENSING, @cslb.ca.gov. If at some point you need to reschedule your exam, you can get that process started by dropping an email to exams, exams@cslb.ca.gov. We've also put together a list of available resources for women considering a career in construction. If you haven't already, be sure to download this presentation to get them. You can download the presentation on the banner on the top of our homepage, which is www.cslb.ca.gov. If you're watching the archive video of this workshop on our YouTube page, you'll find a link to the presentation down below. We do welcome your comments and topics for future webcasts. Just drop us an email to social, SOCIAL, @cslb.ca.gov. Special thanks to our licensing division and public affairs office for their help on this workshop. The Get Licensed to Build workshop is a copyrighted production of the California Contractors State License Board. Thank you for watching.